Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special conversation. Welcome to FII 8. I'm Ollie Barrett. It's my honor to host our very special guest, Sarah de Lagarde.
Thank you.
Sarah, by day, is the head of corporate affairs at Janus Henderson, which is a phenomenal firm headquartered out of London. Except today we're going to talk about communication of a different sort. It is a story about technology. It is a story about prosthetics, and it is a story about artificial intelligence as well. And it is a very personal story. So, honoured guests, FII, please join me in welcoming Sarah de Lagarde. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah, tell us how this story begins. Where are we going?
So the story actually begins in August 2022, when my husband and I fulfilled a dream 10 years in the making. We climbed Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
So this is both of us at the top. Yeah. I have 4 limbs. And exactly a month later, I was in a terrible incident. Exactly a month later, I was in London and I got run over by 2 tube trains, and I lost my right leg below the knee and my right arm above the elbow. So going from very able-bodied to being permanently disabled overnight within a month, really, is very, very tough.
Yeah, and this was but 2 years ago, so this is 2022.
That's right, yeah.
You join us today with 2 prosthetics, an arm and a leg, and we want to hear a little bit more about that journey and some of those reflections, but especially in Britain, I suppose, we tend to not focus in sometimes. We tend to gloss over. Mm-hmm. But with your permission, we'll do the opposite, because we'd like to hear about the prosthetics that have, we hope, changed your life in different ways. So help us understand a little bit about what it means to be, to an extent, tech-powered in a different way.
Yeah, let me show you a little bit more about how my prosthetic arm works. So, as you can see on the slide there, it is activated by thought, and then it is activated by 16 electrodes that are sitting embedded into the socket that has been custom-made for my residual limb. And I think about a movement, I twitch my muscles in a certain sequence, and the 16 electrodes pick up the signal, transform that into electric impulses that then move the arm, move the hand.
So this is completely extraordinary. What would some examples of what you're then able to do be with the hand?
Well, our world has been designed really for people with 2 hands, and everyday tasks are an absolute challenge for me. I mean, I receive a box, delivery, how do I open it is one question. How do I zip up a coat, for example? I used to do that for my children, now my children do it for me.
Yes.
But with an advanced prosthetic, as the one that I currently have, this becomes doable again.
Yeah, and presumably then there's a variety, if you like, of grips, for example, that make these different things possible. To what extent is this one organization that has provided this technology? Is it a combination? How does it work in practice?
So I have to admit, I knew nothing about prosthetics before this happened. And I was surprised to discover how far the technology has come. And also that I'm now made of several spare parts. And for example, the hand that I've got is a company called Covey. Mm-hmm. They're from the UK, and they actually have a booth here in front of Lab 5 if you want to check it out. It's a bionic hand that has a multi-grip, multi-function. Then I've got an elbow that is manufactured in the US.
Yes.
The socket is manufactured in Germany by a company called Ottobock, and then the software in itself is a company based in Chicago called Coapt. And that combination of all of these different spare parts together equals to this arm.
And who has masterminded the combination of those ingredients? Because it sounds to us far from the realms of the work even of a specialist doctor. This is a different level.
Yes, so I go to a private clinic, and the clinicians and prosthetists there, they figure out, according to my lifestyle, according to my injuries, what types of prosthetics are effective.
Yeah, understood. And of course, at a conference with some of the world's leading financiers, this doesn't come cheap.
No.
How has that been unlocked, and what, by contrast, would have been available had that finance not been possible?
So in the UK, you would have the National Health Service that supports patients, but the process is slightly more lengthy.
Yeah.
So I would have had to wait for at least 2 to 3 years to get access to this technology, and it would have been perhaps a slightly less effective technology.
Yeah.
Apart from the hand is now available on the NHS, but I didn't have the desire to wait for 3 years and lose my ability to command my muscles.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was quite important that I had access to it straight away.
Yeah.
But the cost is prohibitive, right? So I think in total, you would spend about £250,000 for the hardware, the software, and the training, the physio training required for that.
Yeah, which is significant. Now, it sounds a bit crass to talk about the market here, but it is worth reflecting on the fact that amputees are not as rare as one might think.
Yes, so the population of amputees worldwide is at around 60 million.
Yeah.
It's still a large number, but comparatively to the number of people on Earth, it's not. But I noticed that there were some design or application issues or challenges, so to say, that could be remediated in the near future, I think. So, prosthesis can get really hot. I can feel that definitely here, and quite heavy. And so I needed quite a lot of training to be able to carry the prosthesis.
So is there any, and it's a very personal thing, is there an example? I think what we're talking about here is that feedback loop.
Yes.
Between you and the innovators.
Yes.
Take us into an example of how that feedback has worked in a way that improves life.
So, I believe that customer feedback is essential to make sure that your company grows, progresses, becomes better. Yeah. And I think Covey, for example, was very attentive in listening to my feedback. I remember being a bit worried about the strength of the glove, of the silicone glove, and my feedback was taken seriously.
What worried in what sense? What do you mean?
Well, I noticed that it could split because there is some metal casing underneath it, and so it could split.
Yes.
But the feedback was taken very seriously, and an underglove had been developed. Yeah. So now the split doesn't happen anymore.
Yes. What are we seeing on the screen? I can see a phone with a cluster in orange there. What are we looking at?
So that is an application that sits on my phone, and it allows me on a day-to-day basis to calibrate my arm. The interesting piece within this advanced prosthetic is the use of artificial intelligence. And so every time I use the arm, data gets collected onto an external server, and so the arm learns my pattern of usage. So in the first instance, artificial intelligence does pattern recognition. Yeah. And then once it's got enough data to work with, it starts thinking about how it can help me actively in completing gestures.
Would it predict?
It could predict. And so basically, right at the beginning, when I first learned how to use it, it was a little bit like driving a car for the first time, it being quite difficult. I had to remain concentrated at all times. Do not talk to me. I can't multitask. But over time, it became a lot easier because of the support that the artificial intelligence gave me. So now I can talk and move my limbs at the same time.
Yeah. And of course, by definition, in the wake of an accident or an incident, the body is changing dramatically. So being in tune with the body is incredibly important.
Absolutely. I mean, it changed quite a bit the view I have of myself now. I am identifying as 80% human and 20% bionic. So I made that decision early on in my journey of recovery to say, I can't hide this. I don't want to hide this. I think it is technology that one should be extremely proud of.
Yes.
And by creating awareness and visibility, hopefully it inspires other people to ask that type of access for.
And then help us imagine a world in which these sorts of technologies are available not just for amputees, for different types of people. Where does your mind take us?
Right. So I said I'm one of 60 million. Some people might say I'm extremely unlucky that I, was involved in such an incident. However, I started thinking about this, and the one thing we all have in common here is that we are all going to age. 100% of us are going to age. And with age comes a restriction in mobility.
Yes.
I see that with my parents. I see that with my parents-in-law. The difficulty of mobility does happen, above the age of 60.
Yeah.
And there is a huge interest in assistive technology. We can think about it as the augmented human.
Yes.
There is developments, and most of the time they're the same companies that provide the prosthesis. They also develop assisted technologies.
And here, to what extent are we talking, Sarah, about replacement as opposed to an enhancement in that sense? What are you imagining? Perhaps it's already happening or starting to happen. Or what do you see?
It's a bit of both. So in my case, it is replacing.
Yep.
I know that at some point it will be more than replacing. It will be augmented.
Yes.
Extra force on the hand. I wanted to show you something. So the different grips that the hand has, so we can program these grips
Yes.
according to what I use most often.
Yes.
But also it is the force that the hand can have.
Yes.
So for example, I can program it to have a very soft touch.
Yes.
Or a very, very strong touch.
Yes.
And so what's interesting here is it allows me to operate daily tasks.
Wow. Yep.
I wasn't a great cook before. I'm still not a great cook, but at least I can pretend.
One layer at a time.
But the augmented side of things is that I went to an award ceremony and I met this boxer.
It looks like Anthony Joshua.
Yes, and I challenged him for a bionic handshake.
Did you?
And he was quite impressed. So let's put it that way. Look at his face; he's screaming in pain.
You showed him. I must say, Power Grip does sound quite Avengers, doesn't it? When we come to think about it, the point about aging, we don't need reminding at FII in terms of demographics worldwide. Sounds like, and forgive me again for going back into business, sounds like that could be an enormous business.
Well, it is, in my mind, a huge investment opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if we look at an aging demographic in the Western world, we look at the US, we look at most of Europe, Asia, Japan in particular, you see that there is going to be a huge demand in medical technologies.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I know that we haven't got the time to really explore this, but we hear about so many advances at these gatherings. At the moment, it seems to me that it is still micro movements that are triggering the movement of the hand in the residual arm. How far are we from being able to think about a move and for it to happen?
So I'm a positively minded person. I think that we're very close. if there is the right investment in the startup companies to actually, go beyond the pretty steep costs of research and development, there is so much that still needs to be done. There are so many more opportunities, like haptic feedback, for example. I can't perceive cold or hot at touch, I do believe that at some point also integration will be quite beneficial for amputees. So that means osseointegration, similar to having an implant in your teeth.
Just say what that would mean in practice. What do you mean integration there?
So that means that you have a metal docking station attached to your residual limb, where you just clip on your prosthesis. It gives a clearer signal from muscles and nerves directly into the machine. At the moment, I'm not 100% convinced, because it does leave an open wound that could be subject to infection over time. So, but that and the Neuralink, I'm waiting for that. Maybe Elon Musk will come along with that, where it's directly plugged into your brain.
Yeah, but your sense is that is on the horizon.
It is on the horizon, and it's just a question on assembling the right people.
So I think of FI as a very supportive community. What do you need help with to make this more of a priority for investors, in a sense? It's an area that clearly and very personally you feel passionate about. But what else is required?
Well, I think there is a lot of great ideas out there, but I would urge investors to think beyond the immediate time horizon. I know that, for example, here in Saudi Arabia, the population is very young. But that's not the case everywhere in the world.
True.
And the fact that we'd like to remain mobile when we age is really important.
Let me ask a final question, Sarah. Thank you for sharing so openly with us today. We hear this very, very powerful phrase around incidents that have happened to people of life-changing. For your life, what's next?
Well, I wanted to let you know that I managed to climb Kilimanjaro again. So,
as you do, my gosh.
So just 2 years after I last climbed it, this August, this summer, I climbed it again, this time as the first woman with 2 prosthetics to get to the top. And my message here is that if you are worth the investment, you are worth the repairs, your capability as a human are completely enhanced.
I had only seen that slide in small with my poor eyesight on my phone. I hadn't realized that final chapter. It is an extraordinary journey which you would have been entirely entitled not to share for the benefit of others, and we're so grateful that you have shared, and we're here to support you on the journey ahead. Sarah de Lagarde, thank you very much indeed.